All right, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover how the true architect of our modern world was systematically erased from the history books. We're going to look at a man who was once celebrated as the absolute pinnacle of scientific genius, a guy who essentially invented the 20th century, only to end up penniless, isolated, and deliberately forgotten by the powers that be.
Take a quick look around at the devices you rely on every single day. Your smartphone, your wireless internet, the power grid that's literally illuminating the room you're sitting in right now. Ask yourself, how would society even function without them? It's pretty much impossible to imagine, right? These technologies are the absolute lifeblood of modern civilization. So, it's completely mind-blowing to realize that a single mind predicted our incredibly complex web of wireless communication and cell phones over a century ago. Way before the first clunky computers were ever built, Nikola Tesla was filing patents, describing how information, voice, and even pictures could be wirelessly transferred. He saw the modern age with absolute crystal clarity in the year 1900.
Which brings us to part one, architect of the modern world, the forgotten celebrity. Let's establish exactly who Nikola Tesla was, because there's this massive misconception out there that he was always just some misunderstood fringe character working completely alone in the dark. That could not be further from the truth. He didn't just dream up the future. He actively built the hardware for it. Just look at his track record. We're talking about the invention of alternating current, AC power, the electronic ignition for your car, the foundational patents for radio, and even early radio-controlled robots. He looked at a world stuck in manual labor and literal darkness, and he engineered a way to light the whole thing up. And in his prime, he wasn't a hermit by any stretch. He was the ultimate New York gentleman in black tie and white tails. He rubbed elbows with presidents, he was good friends with Mark Twain, and he was an absolute superstar. Sure, he was a highly eccentric, germophobic superstar who demanded exactly 18 napkins at dinner, but his fame for mastering electricity deeply overshadowed all of his peers. Now, for part two, the War of the Currents, Vision versus Profit. Because, as you know, immense brilliance inevitably attracts fierce, sometimes ruthless competition. And when you're operating on a level that fundamentally changes how the world consumes energy, your biggest rival becomes Thomas Edison. The stark contrast here is between Tesla's humanitarian vision for incredible efficiency and Edison's brutal, single-minded pursuit of profit. Edison's DC power system was clunky. It required massive, expensive cables and could only travel really short distances. Tesla's AC power was elegant, highly efficient, and basically boundless. To protect his wallet, Edison stooped so low as to publicly electrocute animals just to smear Tesla's AC system as quote-unquote dangerous. To really understand the sheer cruelty of this rivalry, you just have to look at how Edison treated Tesla when Tesla worked for him. Edison promised Tesla a massive $50,000 bonus to completely redesign his inefficient DC motors. When Tesla actually delivered and finished this monumental task, Edison just laughed in his face. He called it an American joke and refused to pay him a single dime. Despite that, Tesla completely triumphed on the world stage by illuminating the 1893 Chicago World's Fair with his AC power system. He proved the impossible to an astonishing number of visitors. To put that into perspective, 27 million people witnessed his victory of alternating current. This directly led to Tesla and Westinghouse harnessing the immense power of Niagara Falls, cementing AC as the global standard forever. Let's move into part three, the wireless power dream, free energy for all. Having conquered the physical power grid, Tesla looked higher, and this ultimately led to his downfall. He didn't just want to wire the world. He wanted to eliminate the wires entirely. Enter the Wardenclyffe Tower in 1901. He wanted to completely eliminate fossil fuels by creating a system where you could simply plug a device right into the ground anywhere on Earth. He believed the Earth itself was a giant natural conductor. His ultimate vision was that you could hold a device about the size of a pocket watch and receive both communication and power completely wirelessly, anywhere on the globe. Imagine conceptualizing a smartphone that never needed charging over 100 years ago. But then we hit this devastating quote from his primary financier, J.P. Morgan. "Nobody's pulling up to my gas pump and getting the gas for free." It perfectly reveals exactly why corporate capitalism panicked at the idea of unlimited, unmetered power. Morgan had invested in a communication system to compete with Marconi, not a charity project giving away free energy to the world. The second Morgan realized Tesla's true philanthropic goal, the funding was abruptly and permanently cut off. Which brings us to part four,
inside the inventor's mind, frequencies, and the ether. To really understand how he even dreamed up these incredibly advanced concepts, we have to look at how he viewed reality itself. Tesla didn't think like a traditional nuts and bolts mechanical engineer. He operated on an entirely different philosophical plane.
He drew really heavily on concepts like the akasha, or the luminiferous ether. He believed this was an energetic substrate that literally filled the entire universe. And more importantly, he believed his brain was just an antenna tapping into this universal frequency. This is exactly why he was notoriously hyperprotective of his own personal energy. He refused to shake hands or engage in romance because he was terrified of scrambling his connection to the universe.
His actual creative process sounds way more like a sci-fi psychic download than traditional engineering. He reported that his inventions would arrive accompanied by an intense flash of light and a severe migraine. Right after the flash, he could perfectly visualize the device in 3 dimensions in his mind, test it mentally for wear and tear, and then literally build the final machine perfectly without ever sketching a single blueprint. No way, right? But he did it. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. This profound philosophy drove absolutely everything he did. It seamlessly connected his immense scientific rigor to a deep reverence for the natural world. He didn't see matter and energy as distinct, disconnected things. To him, it was a harmonious universe operating on specific frequencies, and his entire goal was simply to tune humanity's receivers to match it. So naturally, we get to part 5, Erasure from History Books, The Fall of a Titan. How does the man who basically invented the 20th century just vanish from public memory? How does someone so incredibly famous end up entirely erased from our textbooks for decades?
Well, it was a tragic, incredibly rapid cascade of events. After Morgan pulled that funding, Tesla just drowned in massive debt. He eventually lost the Wardenclyffe property to the owners of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, who literally dynamited his glorious tower just to sell it for scrap metal to recoup their money. He spent his final decades bouncing between cheap hotel rooms, eventually dying completely alone and penniless on Orthodox Christmas in 1943.
And while Tesla was out feeding pigeons in the park, his rivals were heavily consolidating their power. Marconi was winning Nobel Prizes and getting filthy rich off a radio monopoly using patents that Tesla had actually pioneered. Edison formed the Motion Picture Patents Company, essentially controlling early Hollywood and using it as a massive PR engine for himself. Meanwhile, the U.S. government was quietly absorbing all of Tesla's wireless concepts for military applications, all while the FBI kept a highly suspicious watch on the aging genius. But finally, part 6, The Future is Tesla, Ultimate Vindication. You know, you can dynamite a tower, but you cannot dynamite the truth forever. Slowly but surely, history course corrected, and those layers of corporate propaganda have finally been peeled back. In 1943, just shortly after his death, the U.S. Supreme Court finally delivered a massive legal victory. They officially recognized that Tesla's patents predated Marconi's claims. Now, obviously, it was decades too late to save his finances or fund his Wardenclyffe dream, but the highest court in the land finally confirmed that the foundational technology for modern wireless communication was entirely his. And honestly, tackling today's massive existential threats, basically returning directly to Tesla's playbook. When you see a modern EV silently accelerating down the highway, that's a 3-phase motor Tesla invented. Our hydrogrids? That's Tesla too. He was practically designing solutions for climate change a century ago, engineering theoretical blueprints to draw renewable energy straight from the ambient heat in the air. He always knew the ruthless businessmen, the Edisons and the Morgans of the world, had won the short-term battle. They definitely got the wealth and the contemporary fame, but he was entirely confident that he had engineered the future. He wasn't building for the Gilded Age, he was building for us. Because if the man who predicted the smartphone, pioneered renewable energy, and completely mapped out the wireless world was silenced for a century due to corporate greed and PR manipulation, we are left with a pretty vital question. What other world-saving brilliance, what other discarded ideas hold the absolute key to our survival right now?